Welcome, Leeroy. Thank you for coming here. It's really appropriate that you're here at TEDxDilimanStudio, especially since we worked together on TEDxDiliman before. In fact, one of your stage design was adjudged one of the best in the world by TEDx. And you're a street artist, you're a performance artist, you do sculptures, you do practically a lot of things. Have you always been creative growing up?
According to my parents, I scribble on walls, I pick up random pens, and I leave my mark everywhere. So I guess in my mind, I'm one of those children who expressed play through drawing, and I just never stopped.
You grew up in General Santos City, pero you went to the Philippine High School for the Arts. So was that always a trajectory?
You know, the things that I never saw back home, I saw there. So parang it kind of opened up and broke down my preconceptions of what art was. And after that, I went wild, I went crazy.
So from the Philippine High School for the Arts, you went to the UP College of Fine Arts.
At that point, we were already very impatient, you know, having graduated from art high school.
Yeah. Impatient?
In the sense that we wanted to show our works already.
Okay.
No? We wanted to show in galleries or whatever, or anything similar. And that's when we started exploring the streets. Yeah.
What does that mean? So what did you do?
You know, first we did it within the UP premises. No, like we would paint in random structures here in UP, and then we eventually took it to the streets in EDSA and other.
What would you paint?
I guess they still resembled alien life forms.
So it's a what do you call it? Is it a visual presentation, expression, or is it a statement? Or
I guess the act of doing works in the streets is the statement. You know, to us, we realized that, you know, we rather than assimilating to the existing means of presenting art, we could create our own demand by just constantly doing the work that we wanted to do in the streets, which is almost, you know, infinite in terms of spaces. No? And there's so many places that you can, in a way, appropriate or use or harness. You know? Applying my sculptural training to these public spaces, which is an expansion of the idea of doing work in the streets. No? Not just applying paint on existing structures anymore, but actually physically transforming the structures.
So what did you learn, both about yourself and your practice, from the time that you were starting to be, you know, to go to the streets?
At that point, we were constantly contemplating our position in relation to society. You know, like, what is our place here? Do we even have like a place in the scheme of things? So the choice to do works in the streets was also was a matter of survival. One of our concerns also was that the Philippines is not necessarily a culture of gallery goers and museum goers. That's why it was extra easy for us to realize the importance of doing work in public spaces where we could meet our audience halfway. And in these spaces, we realized that there are a lot of negotiations that need to take place. You know, there are many people, many stakeholders for these public spaces. You know, I get to talk to like the in-house architects, engineers, the people who use the space, the bystanders. So these are the skills that I had to learn during my arts training. That if you want to do this specific kind of work that involves the public and more people, and in these spaces, you really have to have a grasp of the ideas that you're working with and how to communicate these.
In a way, you're trying to contextualize.
Exactly.
Space, right?
Exactly. So context is everything.
Can you talk about a specific project, kunyari?
For my thesis project in UP, I was able to get the permission of national artist Napoleon Nabueva, who designed those two very geometric waiting sheds that look like paper airplanes. I requested if I could subvert the form of one of them by wrapping it in spandex and inserting giant beanbags into the spandex, so the form looks more organic and blob-like. I wanted to do large-scale sculptures and installations at that time, but the opportunities were limited. So whenever I get offers like, "Hey, can you design the facade of my store?" I would immediately say yes.
What was the big break?
I guess my first show abroad was the Singapore Biennale back in 2008. After that, I got invited to do a large-scale installation for the Fukuoka Asian Triennale again. Like this residency that I did in Bendigo in Australia, where they didn't have a budget for me to work with, very limited. So we went to recycling centers. So this was back in 2009. I guess there was a conscious decision to not buy my materials in art stores, but to get them from where the people get their everyday objects. Yeah. So to me, it was a challenge, to like transform everyday objects into something else. And I was able to apply that training when I did that residency in Bendigo. I encountered piles of discarded hoses in this recycling center, which we got for a few dollars. And I kind of locked myself up in my room, and I just allowed my hands to play with the material, which I normally do, I guess it's a part of like body memory, like just fidgeting and manipulating materials. It opened up the idea that I could continue using these everyday objects as a way to create these large-scale pieces. But then it also led naturally to the direction for me to use surplus materials and discards. And I felt it was also my responsibility to shift to that direction slowly. I've used so many different materials that I know that I can attain some level of mastery with any material that I use. Then why not use the discards then,
The latest big project that I'm aware of that's yours are the floating islands. Is it Pasig?
For the Pasig River.
Right. Can you talk a little about that?
Yes. Me and my collaborator, urban planner and designer Julia Nebrija, have always come up with these like crazy projects with regards to the urban Manila and how we can kind of confront certain issues about the city through creative solutions.
Like what the issues?
Well, this specific project has to do with the Pasig River. In the past decades, it was declared ecologically dead, and no one seems to care that this main feature of Metro Manila is sort of invisible to people. They don't care about it. So, and to us, that's not the case. There are so many examples where the river is the lifeblood of a thriving city. It is a public space where people walk, and there are regular ferry rides that people can take to explore the city via the river. So this is something that we wanted to address. And so we came up with this idea to do a floating island, which was also a floating sculpture, but also a performance space.
How big was it?
It wasn't necessarily that big. Maybe it was 6 meters in diameter, like an island that was supported by drums, plastic drums, to keep it afloat, a wooden platform, and an organic metal frame where the performer can climb up and down or act as protection for the people inside. And we were lucky to get funding from the Burning Man Global Arts Grant at that time.
And that's how you got to eventually now to Burning Man, right?
Could be. I'm not sure if those two are necessarily related, but I think it helped that when I finally proposed a project for the Burning Man Festival itself, it helped that they saw that I was a recipient of that Global Arts, the Burning Man Global Arts Grant. So yeah.
Unfortunately, the pandemic came just as your piece was going to be
built
there, right?
In Black Rock City.
So more broadly, how has the pandemic affected your work?
Well, I've established a practice where I get invited to do work in specific sites. So there's a lot of travel involved because the work is site-specific. It addresses the site directly. I build there, collect materials from the surrounding environment. So it's really grounded on me being able to travel and be there. And yeah, so that all kind of went away during the start of the lockdown. But in my mind, I guess it's a lot of missed opportunities, but also a lot of new doors opening.
Has it? So when you talk about new doors opening, we don't know when the pandemic will end, right? And even if it does end, whether certain shall we call it practices that are being done during the pandemic might be like wearing masks are probably here to stay, right?
Yeah.
So how does that affect you?
Well, to cite an example, during the first months of the pandemic in the Philippines, it was hopeful to see that these independent design studios and artist studios converted what they were doing to create improvised face shields. That just affirms the idea that artistic practice has the ability to evolve to address directly the issues that confront us at hand. My own studio, my small team helped doing improvised face shields, and we donated to different health clinics and hospitals. But also people were sending me photos of Filipinos wearing improvised face shields, using those large plastic bottles. I guess mostly because it reminded them of my own headpieces that I make using discards and found objects. And to me, it was only natural to explore this idea of face shields as a way to make statements and specifically respond to this phenomenon that was happening the world over.
Siguro to end. Well, what's next for Leeroy and you?
For the Burning Man art project, we're all now gonna build our installations in our own countries. And maybe next year, if it's allowed already to do a physical gathering, we might bring it there next year. I've been selected to be a participant for the Sydney Biennale for Sydney Biennale.
Sydney Biennale. Okay.
And also I'm for the Honolulu Biennale as well for early next year. Okay. So hopefully
it's going to be very busy.
Yeah, but the pandemic has taught us to not be so invested in these things now and be flexible. And we're already talking about having a team there, a local team, do the work, and you invest your time in making plans that they can follow. So, practices are evolving. I'm also doing a similar installation similar to the Burning Man project in Ateneo, in Arete, for their public art space. So it will resemble a kind of Mars colony structure where we will actually grow plants and food. No? So I've been exploring how to integrate practical systems into the structures that I build. So they're not just purely impressive forms, but also practical models for practical, systems and solutions even. And marrying that with my now strict use of surplus materials and discards.
So, thank you, Leeroy, for taking this time to share your experiences
Thank
and
you
your
for
thoughts
having me.
and your ideas. And we'll definitely be working together
Yes.
in the near future.
Soon.
Burning Man.